realism of the film.
Because we talk.
Lovely to meet you, Tom. Who's the real Tom Pryor?
That's a really good question. I am pretty creative at heart, that's for sure. I am not very good at doing things which don't really inspire me. I'm very kind of like really need the inspiration. I'm not very good at sort of just kicking back and sort of doing something for the sake of it.
No, when you do it, you know why you're doing it. Yes.
Yeah. I love color. Like I'm a very colorful person. Hence the shirt. But I mean,
yeah,
like,
no, I've seen your profile. You've
out.
got really cool red carpet outfits. Really like it. Suits you.
Yeah. I'm always looking for the most like the kind of rich, deep qualities of interactions with people. Yes. I'd say that I find it very difficult to do small talk, and sometimes that can be quite challenging. Because I'm always kind of like going in for the kind of bigger, deeper questions of sort of like, what are we doing and why are we doing it, and why are we here? And I've got sort of side passions such as quantum physics and
lovely
epigenetics, and looking into kind of, I'm really fascinated by everything almost beyond what we can see, and more about what we can almost feel or sense. And I really love really good food.
Oh.
I'm a real like food like person as well, really like into like food, but also I really like love to be like very active in my lifestyle, and that's really, even in terms of like listening to like I'd much rather listen to an audiobook, for example, than read an audiobook.
Okay, well, I do that too. Sometimes it's better because you go straight to your subconscious as well, doesn't it? When you yeah, I like it. Thank you, Tom. You trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, graduating in 2012. Was acting a childhood dream?
I had always loved the environment of a theatre, and always loved the anticipation of a cinema. There's something about like this moment before anything happens that I've always found very like contagious or like very attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it probably was a childhood dream, but it was not always necessarily like the only thing I was interested in doing. I'm very interested in many different things, and sometimes that's quite difficult because it's like, okay, I've got to focus on one. But I have always absolutely loved all things kind of acting, filmmaking, and but really the process as well of putting something like a production together.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you. You've played Eddie Redmeye's son Robert Hawking in The Theory of Everything, Hugo in Kingsman, The Secret Service, the Secret Service, and Bill Carswell on the ITV 2002 series in Endeavour. From all the characters you portrayed so far, who was your favorite and why?
Of those three?
Well, of the ones mentioned here, but you can go and tell me, if not these ones, why the other one?
I mean, I'd say that like I really enjoyed playing my character in Kingsman because mainly because it was just like so many extraordinary experiences. There's a lot of the stuff actually we shot didn't make it to into the film, just because we overshot a lot of different things, but there was lots of like running around with guns and dogs, and taking dogs through assault courses, and there's this sequence where we're locked in a room underwater and got to get out, and that to me was probably one of the most enjoyable and action.
Yes, I remember that
thrillers. Actions and thrillers really are kind of my preferred genre. I really love like that element of anticipation. But I'd say, as in terms of character I've actually enjoyed playing the most, would be Sergei in Firebird, because it's so deep. Like it's very relentless in the spectrum of emotions I get to play.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Which brings us to your latest project, the acclaimed indie feature Firebird, which you co-wrote, produced, and starred in. It's a touching love story based on true events. Tell us a bit more about Firebird.
Well, Firebird actually found me when I was in Los Angeles, having just shot Kingsman: Theory of Everything. I was taking a whole bunch of meetings through my agents, and the only meeting I took, which had nothing to do with their organization, was with a film producer and a film financer, and she had just read actually Peter Revain's first draft of what was then called Raman.
Okay.
And she was like, I think you'd be really good to play the lead in this film. And it was as she decided to introduce us back in London a few weeks later. And I read the original first draft and was like, wow, like this is a really, really cool story.
Yeah.
It appealed to me on many levels. It was like this kind of action thriller, but also then there's this deep, like romantic story at the core of it. And yeah, Peter and I decided that we would shoot several scenes to prove the concept, and to help raise the rest of the financing for the film. And it's then I started making some suggestions on how the script could be improved. And really, that's how I then got turned into a co-writer and a producer. And then, yeah, we raised the rest of the financing for the film over the next few years, and then also went to Russia to meet the real Sergei, get to know him, which was amazing. And I'm very proud of the finished product. It's a very long process that I've been through. I've been personally involved in the film for just under 7 years.
Wow.
And I was doing other things amongst that during that time, but for the last few years has been very much full time. And yeah, it totally changed my life making this film. Like all the interactions and the learning of so many different processes of the film making world. And I also ended up becoming accidentally like the music supervisor in the film as well, which was fun. So that was an added extra. But I've always really found the power of music very resonant for me personally, and so it kind of ended up again sort of coming to find me.
Oh, well, that's really good. Tell me something, is that why you reside in Estonia?
I am spending my time between Estonia and England. Yeah.
Was it when you were filming that you decided to stay, or had you moved to Estonia before you start filming?
Yeah, I mean, I would have been spending quite a bit of time here during the research, because the production company which we made the film with is based here.
Yes.
And a majority of like the people that we were meeting and researching with as well are people who lived under the Soviet Union, and also had like a level of English as well to speak with. And also there was not a lot of active research that actually we could do in Russia.
Yes.
The original Air Force base, actually, where the story is set, is in Estonia, and I mean, obviously, then it was Soviet occupied Estonia, but yeah. So that's really been the thing, is like we split the time between meeting and financing and me still living in London, then coming here and doing lots of the other film bits here.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. What inspired you while writing this story? You said you start putting suggestions, and then, so how did you see that you should have been shown the movie?
I mean, when I first read the earlier drafts, I was so taken by like the backdrop of the Air Force Base and you know, the intensity of the love, and for me it started as dialogue changes. I'm always like seeking the truth. That's like in my life personally. I'm sort of radically self-honest, and also like will do this also with script as well. And I'm like, does that sound like the way that people speak? And it's very difficult to do that, actually. It's very difficult to write dialogue which actually sounds like the way that people speak. So that's where my initial feedback came, and then really I was like, actually, I feel that the film will have much greater like excitement and experience if we bring in the working element of the Air Force Base and bring in some action sequences and sort of have this romantic thriller quality to it, because Peter definitely won't mind me saying this, but I think like before I came on board as a writer, it probably would have been a bit more of like an art house film, and much like probably slower in pace and sort of more considered and definitely a very different pace. Whereas like in the final cuts, that we have now is that it moves at quite fast momentum, I think.
Yes.
So those were probably the biggest changes that I made. And the inspiration really for me actually was meeting the real Sergei as well. And that changed everything, as we'd been writing already for quite some time. And then meeting him, and I was like, okay, like this gave me a really good idea of how I wanted to play him. Which was quite against what people would maybe expect, which would have been probably somebody a little bit more like beaten down, more like shameful, more internal. Yeah. And I was like, we've seen this so many times in films. Not to say that that's not what the experience can be like for such a journey of identity and risk, but also Sergei in real life was such a warm, positive, overcoming attitude kind of a person. So that's really how it ends up informing how I played it.
Yes, you sort of answered my next question, which is what attracted you to Sergei's character. So we've got those two. Was it your first time playing a gay character?
Yeah, I think it was. I'm just trying to think. I mean, I played a character in a film which was shot in Iceland who had a very protective obsession about his best friend, which I think was probably maybe unrequited love, but it's not played out remotely in the film. So that's why I was kind of thinking about it. I was going, was Jack a bit I think he was just very jealous, actually. So yeah, I think probably, to be fair, I'd say that this would be the first one. Yeah.
Fantastic. And how was the training for it? Did you have to practice? Did you have to focus differently to play his character? Obviously, it was the first time you were playing, so.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the like dialect, the accent training, we worked with an amazing dialect coach, Catherine Charlton, who actually helped Oleg, my co-star, become more English or much clearer sounding. And Diana as well, who plays Louisa. and then like with my accent and Jake, who plays my best friend Volodya in the film, took us much more Russian sounding. And initially it was very Russian. It was pretty thick in terms of the accent. And then we just started cutting away at it. And actually that's probably one of the most nuanced and tricky things to do in terms of accent, is that it's quite possible to do quite a thick accent quite easily. But like to really like refine it and make it so that I could still be very emotionally accessible was really amazing. And then in terms of the physical training, we went to the Estonian Defense Forces for several days, which was cool. Did some military training with them. Lost our freedom, to do what we want when we wanted in the day and what we chose to eat and when we were told to do things. And aimlessly like having to dig a foxhole to shelter in for like hours and hours and hours. So wow. It was really, really good for breaking this perception of freedom. I mean, it's nothing at all like the Soviet army would have been.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, when we were doing our research, there's people who literally won't speak about those 2 years of their life, and not because of anything to do with identity, it was simply because they were so traumatic.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we kind of did the best that we did. And then we had many military consultants actually on the set as well, in the lead up to the set, and then throughout as well, making sure that everybody was saluting at the right angle and wow. with the right hand, and where you're allowed to wear a hat and stuff, things like that. So yeah, there was quite a lot of
no idea. The end result is amazing, but people have no idea what you have to go through to get. From all the characters you have portrayed so far, including Sergei, which one would you like to meet in real life? Obviously, you had the pleasure to meet Sergei. Would he be him, or would you like to meet maybe Jack, Hugo? Who would you like to go for a pint with?
That's a really good question. I mean, Sergei I got to know, but in a very short amount of time. And so I was with him for a few days in Moscow in 2016. And it honestly would have been amazing to spend more time with him and to really hear his experiences during that time, and also hear how he ended being so resilient. Being very truthful to himself in terms of his identity and following love all the way through, even after having horrific loss as well. In the film, he continued to, unapologetically be himself. And so I would have loved to have heard more of the stories of how he, overcame and what he did and the situations that he was in and how he handled that. Because that's, it's its own sort of thriller there and then. So yeah, I would have loved to have spent more time with him actually, because the second time or third time actually, I think I was in Russia, actually was his funeral. So
yeah,
it was like amazing to get to actually speak with his friends and get to learn like more about him that way. But yeah, in real life it would have been really special
if you got to spend more time. Thank you. You starred at the London's West End production of Tory Boys by James Graham, Prince of Denmark and Romeo and Juliet. And then you were selected with the National Youth Theatre REP Company, and you were one of the 15 actors around UK working in a collaboration with the National Theatre. What do you find most challenging? Is it screen or stage?
They have such different qualities. I definitely prefer working in film because you can do so much with, dare I say, so little. At the end of the day, it's not actually really about it being easier, because, you know, when the camera is like this far from your face and the person that you're speaking to is there, and then there's a crew of like maybe 60 people around you, and you're, you know, delving into some of the most deep emotions that you can experience, and everyone's like, it has a very different quality to doing that on stage. I mean, there's a sort of, I love how nuanced, like, and how small you can do things with acting. You can just like raise half an eyebrow, and, you know, on a cinema screen that's huge.
Yes.
And I really love like playing with like looks and very small details. And I think that a lot of life is really in the details.
Yes.
Whereas on stage, there is something that's so magical about being live in a situation. But for me, it doesn't quite have that same nuanced effect. Like, I like to do things, and obviously, of course, sometimes you've got to do stuff quite a bit bigger to reach the back. And that's definitely more challenging for me in terms of emotional realism more than anything else, because I chase the realism, but also I chase the realism with the entertainment. Like, I think that we've got to be real in acting and in filmmaking, or in this world, but it also has to be entertaining. Otherwise people will just like, okay, great.
That's
I can just go and watch people on the tube do this.
How do you like to spend your free time when you're not filming or writing? What does Tom like to do?
I love swimming. Like, I really, really love swimming and being in water. I really do love being like active. I like hiking and exercising in the gym. I love going sprinting. I love going running with my husky. She's a good runner as well, which is nice. I'm very passionate about food. Like, I'm always like changing my day, like my route of my day, to go and get particular food that I like, or particular coffee that I like, or something. And then I'm absolutely fascinated by, you know, meditation and other forms of healing. And that's been something that's been very interesting for me, like the majority of my life. I was quite sick actually as a child, and so I've always been quite fascinated to find sort of like things that were able to sort of like ease that. And yeah, I really love connecting with music, and I'm just beginning to like bring more musicality into my own life, which is really nice. What else do I love doing? It's a really good question. I love like learning about like new professions, or like new ways of being, and also, you know, like helping people. I really like helping people with mindset and how to overcome. Like, I'm really fascinated by this concept of being able to demonstrate like superhuman powers in our own bodies. And I'm not talking like Marvel superhero. I'm not talking like lightning out of my hands. I'm talking, you know, like
healing.
How can we heal each other? How can we be, you know, more supreme in our energy levels, for example, that we experience even of ourselves? What can we do? How can we alter that? How can we, you know, change up our diet or our thoughts or our actions or whatever that might be? So yeah, some of those things.
So you keep really busy even when you're not busy, you're busy.
Oh, I'm terrible at switching off. Like, I mean, I'm so like, people just like, let's go on like a beach holiday, like friends or something. I'm like, I can't lie on a beach. Like it drives me mad.
Yeah.
I have to like, if I'm going to tan, like I'm going to be tanning, walking around on the beach, listening to an audiobook.
Yes.
I'm not very good at just like not doing that much, which sometimes is also a challenge in itself. So
Yes.
yeah,
Trying to stop.
Relax. Yeah.
Where can we expect to see you next? You have any exciting new projects you can talk about, or?
I can't talk about one of them at all at the moment. And then, I mean, to be honest, it'd probably be better to actually say what I can talk about is that I definitely will be writing another project personally myself, which actually explores such subjects around this superhumanness.
Yes.
That's about as much as I can say about that one. And I really want to continue to be working in this sort of genre of films, actually. I'm really fascinated by, biopics of people who have had to have really strong overcoming of very difficult situations, or like, let's say, like a sports person, like somebody wrote to me the other day on social media being like, oh, you should play Tom Daly in his story about how he became an Olympic medalist. And I was like, well, I'm not quite seeing how I'm going to be able to do that, but like, as in, like, I really love the idea of playing somebody like a sports person from history or something.
Water, you live a swimmer and you love water, so
well, maybe there's that, but yeah, like something really amazing about people who have changed history, running the 4-minute mile, or a bit sort of like a character like Alan Turing, who's changed the face of the Second World War. Characters like that always really fascinate me. So yeah, I'm still very much open for seeing what else comes along.
Yes, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. My son has autism, and I had the screener for Firebird. Like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. And then yesterday I was like, okay, I need to watch it today. And I start watching it. And the background noise, because there's no subtitles in my place, I have to have subtitles because I have to be able to read it, because there's always a lot of noise. I asked his dad is here from England, so I told him, look, keep him quiet while I interview Tom. That's why he's quiet. But I've started seeing it. I will try to continue. And like you said, it's very interesting. I really enjoyed as far as I was able to see. But I really look forward to seeing you in the future. And I think the way you think and the way the person that you are, which is what I want people to see, who's the real Tom Pryor, is an amazing person. So continue being who you are and doing the amazing work you do.
Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing that. I appreciate it.
No, you're welcome, Tom. It has been a pleasure. So thank you so much. And Firebird is at the moment. Is it still in cinemas?
It depends where you are in the world. Like,
yes.
I mean, some places it's just starting in cinemas, which is kind of wild. I think somebody said to me the other day that they're playing in cinemas in the Netherlands right now.
Oh, okay.
But in most places like UK, US, and I think also Australia is all now you can buy it everywhere, from iTunes to Google to YouTube to most I think nearly every service you can think of, which is legal and you can pay for, it's available on. There's also lots of places you can watch it which are very illegal, and we're very not happy about that.
Thank you very much, my dear. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks very much.
Okay. Take care.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Realism of the film.
Because we talk.